That's right, Jordan. June is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. While many people just think of Alzheimer's as memory loss, the disease kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined.
Yeah, shocking numbers. Joining us now is Taylor Wilson, who serves as the Director of Government Affairs for the South Carolina chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Taylor, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
So important to have this conversation this morning. Taylor, talking about, those statistics, more than cancer combined here. We were talking about Alzheimer's disease. What does that impact here in South Carolina when it comes to Alzheimer's and dementia?
So we know we have over 122,000 people living with dementia in South Carolina, but when you look at that compounded, they may have one caregiver, they may have three caregivers. So you're talking about 218,000, 219,000 people who are caregiving for these individuals. And dementia is a very complex disease. It's a complex needs system. You have a lot of people providing over 40 hours of care each week.
Wow.
My goodness, and I'm sure that's just a lot to go through on just one human body, right? Talk about, what you're seeing, and talk about the makeup of Alzheimer's when we talk about race and really gender, or does it even matter?
Absolutely, it matters. So go for gender first. We know that 2/3 of all Alzheimer's cases are women. Women actually have a 1 in 5 chance of having dementia in their lifetime after the age of 45 compared to 1 in 10 for men. We also know that women make up the majority of caregivers, over 70%. So Alzheimer's is a disease that's really shouldered by women. Next is African Americans are twice as likely to have dementia compared to Caucasians. However, they also are 7-8 times more likely to get a latent disease diagnosis. We also know that Hispanics, Latinos are 1.5 times as likely. All of that is still being worked on through researchers to try and figure out what are the differences and what are the risk factors that are associated with that. But we also know that women and other minorities are typically very underrepresented in clinical trials. And so that's why the Alzheimer's Association is dedicated to ensuring that all of our research has at least 30% underrepresented populations in our clinical trials.
Absolutely. And Taylor, you had mentioned, late diagnosis. Talk about some of those symptoms you should be looking out for.
So there's a couple of things where people always say, oh, well, I forgot where my keys were, or I forgot what my grandchild's name was. Listen, if you have 35 grandchildren, getting it sort of right is good, okay? Your brain is a processor. It can get full. But a man told me one time he realized that he was having a problem when he picked up a shoe and didn't know how it went on. And so when you start to see changes in your ability to do normal routine things like taking a trip to the supermarket and getting lost, having mood swings that are drastically different than somebody that you know for a long time, those are all symptoms. If you have any doubt about your loved one or your own memory, you need to go see a doctor immediately.
And Taylor, you have a personal story that you have, concerning Alzheimer's. Would you mind sharing a little bit of that?
So my grandmother, I called her my lady, was actually diagnosed with dementia. And in fact, she had multiple siblings and they all had some form of dementia before they passed away. But beyond that, knowing that we have obviously what we would call a genetic link in our family, I've also over the last 9 years with the Alzheimer's Association met advocates and people who fundraised, who had the early stages of the disease, who I've seen progress and actually pass away from this disease, because Alzheimer's has 0 survivors. This is still a disease without a cure. So it is 100% fatal, and it's something that we're continuing to strive to find a way to prevent, to treat, and to really look at a new generation where they ask what was Alzheimer's, not what is Alzheimer's.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, it can of course be a strain on the patient or the person that's diagnosed, but caregivers as well. Talk about the importance of those caregivers and just what they take on with this.
So caregivers provide billions of hours in unpaid care. In fact, these unpaid caregivers are actually what hold back the cost of this disease on other taxpayers, because right now we're spending $362 billion on taking care of people living with dementia. caregivers are shouldering more than that. They're providing billions of hours in unpaid care, and we really have to take care of our caregivers. Caregiver physical health tends to decline, their mental health tends to decline, and we know that financially, caregivers see a significant reduction in their financial stability. So it really is important for us to look at this disease as it affects the entire family. I always say it's not ripples in a pond, it's hammer to glass. All of the glass cuts anyone who's near it when it breaks. So we have to really start to focus on how we're going to support the community as a whole for families living with dementia.
Again, speaking of the community, tell us, how we can be a part to find a cure.
Well, right now we're coming up into July, so we're leaving June Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month. We're moving into July, which is our Ride to End Alzheimer's. It's a 252-mile bike ride in the dead heat of summer, and I'm sure that Tony would probably have some forecasts for us on that one. But it is absolutely incredible. 252 miles. Last year we raised $1.3 million. This year we're going for $1.5 million. It goes to providing care and support for families living with dementia here in South Carolina, but also the key component, which is research. We are trying to get to finding more treatments that are going to make a difference in the lives of people facing dementia.
Well, Taylor, I can tell you that you have made a difference in so many lives this morning by just sharing this information. So thank you so much for being here. And as she mentioned, we'll have all the information for that Rise for Alls on our website, as well as this interview at WISTV.com. Taylor, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, stay with us. We got more Sunrise after this.